Hello, and welcome again to The Art of a Well-Lived Life. Today, I am honored to welcome Kenn Ross, photographer, speaker, world traveler, and the son of legendary Dr. Elizabeth Kübler-Ross. Kenn has spent decades carrying forward his mother's profound legacy through the Elizabeth Kübler-Ross Foundation, a global nonprofit dedicated to transforming the way we care for the dying and the grieving. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with Kenn and just find out more about his mother, her legacy, and just all that he has learned about death and dying m- from his mother, and how that has, if at all, I can only imagine it is, how it has changed the way that he moves through the world, um, with a better understanding of the impermanence of life. So, without further ado, let's dive in. And here we are. Hello, Kenn Ross. How are you today?
I am pretty good. I just got back from Endwell 2025, so I'm all psyched up to do the work and
And
getting
so
ready
tell
for
me about that. What exactly is Endwell? I'm
Endwell is a group that's based in Los Angeles, and they have like the premier conference in the United States that brings together death and dying and grief and everything in the space.
wow.
Funeral rites, cemeteries, all sorts of things, the latest ideas, the people we know and the people who are coming up. It's a great mix of yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so they're not just about this or that. They, definitely very rounded in their approach culturally, and they do a very good job. So I was happy to be a part of that. As
Did you
usual,
speak or were you just there as a,
as a tourist, I was a
yeah,
tourist.
okay. Okay. Well, that's kind of fun for you, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's great. And you never know who you're going to bump into because every 30 minutes I'm bumping into an old friend I didn't expect to see there. So
Oh,
it's
that's
fantastic.
nice.
And the night before they have something called, I always mess this up, death over drafts. So about 150 people get together at a bar and they're all kind of griefy death people.
Okay.
And so we have that event Wednesday night, and then Thursday you have Endwell, and then Friday you have the Grieftastic Book Fair with all the writers in the space. And again,
Grief-tastic.
they have the classics and they have the new people. So it's a wonderful mix of what's happening, well, people we love and people we're gonna love.
Great. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, because it's three events, it really draws a lot of people from around the country.
Yeah, that's great. And so I want to start back a little bit about when your mother passed and
Mhm.
you decided, or what inspired you,
Excited.
yeah, what inspired you to start the foundation?
My mother spooks. So that's what she would say. Totally, the God spirits were aligned. So several days after my mom passed or died, if we prefer that word, maybe 3 or 4 days afterwards, people were showing up from around the world every week. Every week was a soap opera. Every week was total like, what's going to happen this week? So the week my mom died, I'm a little bit in shock, but again, it was expected. So
Right.
it's like, wow, it finally happened. She got her wish. So
Yeah.
good for her. You know. But a woman showed up from Mumbai, from Bombay, India. And she said, "Oh, I've flown here all the way to talk to Elizabeth. Can I speak with her, please?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You just missed her. She just walked out the door." So, I knew I had to do something. I was always a gracious host with these people, even when they didn't call and make arrangements. I do the
Right.
same thing as a traveler sometimes. So I took her to the room where she died, let her sit in her bed, told her stories for hours, gave her books, gave her tapes, you know, gave her the inside story about the family and, everything I thought would inspire her. Not thinking she was still going to do the hospice, but I just wanted her to walk away with some kind of personal event.
Yep.
I even let her touch my mom's clothing. And she said, Yo, you know what? I'm so inspired from just feeling her energy in this room. I'm going to go back and start this hospice in Mumbai. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing that this woman feels the
Right.
energy, the presence, the legacy is in this room. Maybe, like, I haven't thought about it at all because I was anxious to get back to being a photographer, but I thought maybe I should do something with my mom's legacy, which I hadn't thought about. I was in denial. So, uh, anyway, I started thinking maybe I should start a foundation. I don't know anything about foundations or boards of directors, but I should do this. And then again, a few months later, I got a call from three women in Mexico, and they said, Ken, we just read your mom's book. We're really inspired. Can we start a foundation in Mexico? And I go, I don't know, like maybe, like why don't you come up here and visit? So they said, great, where can we stay? I go, oh, just stay at my house, because again, I'm a traveler, so
Right.
four-bedroom
Yeah, you
house.
get
So,
it.
so they couldn't believe it. So anyway, they came and stayed at the house and they just hung out. We told stories and it was great. And they said, yeah, if you let us, we'll go back and start the first foundation in Latin America, in Mexico. And during my mom's time, she had started international chapters in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. But, she was just constantly traveling and did not have time to go everywhere. She went to a few places in Southern Africa. But, also a lot of cultures weren't ready for her message
Mm-hmm.
culturally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, like maybe now is the time to begin exploring different cultures where my mom was not able to do her work in her day because they weren't ready to hear the message, but now they are. And
Right.
because of that, we have started, I believe, 17, 18 new languages of her book that have never been
Oh,
published
wow.
when she was alive because now they're ready for the message.
Yeah,
So
that's so
recently,
great.
yeah, we just published first books in Albanian, Farsi, Mongolian. We just sold her work in Arabic to a number of countries.
Wow.
So really amazing just to see it just keep steamrolling along.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so anyway, I started the foundation the following year in 2005. I did take a 3-month break first. I moved to Sweden and
Oh,
just needed to get some space from everything.
yeah.
I've been handling, all my mom's crazy life for 9 years. So I took a couple month break, got an apartment in Sweden, and when I came back, we started the foundation.
Oh, yeah, wow. And so you've been there, you're in Scottsdale, that's where it's based out of.
It's based, and initially we thought we are going to build a building, and we talked to local university. They were going to give us $5 million to build a building and a whole program. At the same time, they raised tuitions. The students revolted, and they had to pull back on all new programs, including ours.
Oh,
So that was like 5 years of my life. And then the next 5 years, I was trying to figure out what to do with the foundation. And then for a couple of years, Diane Gray took over running the foundation. I was just burnt out again. And when I came back, I thought, you know what? We're going to do international chapters because the first boards wouldn't let me do it. They were nervous about liability and all sorts of things like that. But I just said, I think that's where I hear my voice, my mom's voice, and
right.
my own voice calling that we need to be very international because my mom's message is truly universal.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of that, what are you the most proud of that's happening now, currently? Like, what are you
Wow.
psyched about?
Yeah, I think we're on a roll now. And again, internationally, we don't do so much domestically, but,
And why do you think that is?
you know, I've been watching this field shockingly since 1969, so that's a
Yeah.
long time, right? So, 56 years later, even though I don't think we have it right, I think the field's very crowded, right?
Hmm.
I think
Okay.
there's a ton of death doulas and palliative care groups and other death groups. But internationally, I feel like we've only got a certain amount of time in our lives, right? And we only have a certain amount of money. We only have a certain number of people working with the foundation. Where can I make the biggest bang for the
Hmm.
smallest amount of invest?
Hmm.
And what can I do that's going to change a culture generationally? I can't
Hmm.
do that in the United States. It's been done. But if I go to Central America, I can change an entire society in 5 years through the work of the foundation. If I go to
Wow.
Chile, we initiated the first pediatric hospice. That's a generational change in that culture. So I'm looking for like the big things that will actually change society's medical, capabilities or language, that we can do a lot with a minimum of input. So that's why I think for us, the most important thing is to find these spots around the world where we can make a huge change. About 18 months ago, I went to Jakarta, for example, met with the Ministry of Education, met with the social workers, and they're going to incorporate my mom's work into their teachings in the university. So that's huge. They've got
Yeah.
60,000 people studying social work. I can't remember the number. I got 80,000, studying medicine, whatever it was. Um, that's a lot of eyes seeing mom's
Absolutely.
work, and it's the most populated Islamic country in the world. So if they accept mom's work in that Islamic country, it'll be accepted in the other countries
Right.
where Islam holds sway. So that's a big thing to move all those cultures into knowing about my mom's work.
Yeah, that's great. And I like what you said about just the sort of the biggest bang for your buck. Like,
Right.
where can you make the biggest change in the shortest amount of time? And yeah, and I mean, because your mother was so international, like it just kind of makes sense for you to be doing it the way that you're doing it.
Right. Her work, I mean, I don't know of anyone in the field whose work is in, 44 languages and
Yeah,
growing
no.
still is just crazy. So just in the last 2 years, we did conferences. We did two conferences in Nepal. We did a grief program in Bangladesh. We had multiple conferences in Guatemala. We're doing trainings in Mexico. I just met with the mayor down in outside of Santiago, Chile, to start the first adult hospice now.
Huh.
We're doing a project with St. Luke's Hospital in Singapore to bring compassionate community to their country. We participated in the Nigerian Palliative Care Conference in West Africa. I was supposed to be in Botswana last month, but I had a back operation, so I couldn't join them for that. But
Well,
uh,
and so just to bring that back around, like you've been traveling your whole life, right? I mean, you
right.
traveled with your mother.
And I think she was secretly training me to run this foundation when I was a child. She already like her little antenna were going like, I'm going to train my son, and he's going to run this operation around the world when I'm gone.
Yeah, wow, that's so and is your sister involved in the foundation as well, or mostly it's
Minimally,
you?
she's got a regular job and she's
Yeah.
got kids, and I was always, the kind of gypsy like my mother, and
Okay.
going to strange places and never got married and had kids. So, and
Yeah.
I was one taking care of my mom for 9 years, so I really got to understand her work and who the players were and who to trust and not trust and
Right, right.
so forth.
And so how was that? I mean, this may be kind of a personal question for you, but
Oh, jump in.
given that this was her whole life's work, and then you were with her for 9 years while her health was declining, um, how, I don't even know how to ask this question, but it more like, how did she apply it to herself as she was moving through death?
There's a funny interview, if you can find it, with her talking to Oprah. Um, Oprah heard my mom was dying.
I just read something about that, and she flew out there, right?
Yeah, she flew out just for the day from Chicago, and she put her dogs up at a local hotel because she heard my mom had coyotes. And so she came to the house, and my mom had interviewed with Oprah a number of times over, decades.
Right.
And so they were like, they knew each other and they had a real nice familiar repartee. And so anyway, Oprah was like, "So Elizabeth, how do you feel about dying?" She goes, "Ah, it sucks. Like, I feel like an airplane that is on the runway but can't take off. Like
Mm,
either let me take off or let me live, but I'm in this kind of middle state. And that was frustrating to my mom because, she was a very active woman. She was hyperactive, as a matter of fact, and she couldn't walk, so she couldn't make her own tea. She couldn't cook, which she loved. It was her therapy. She couldn't garden. She couldn't shop. So it was very torturous for my mother. So she was
mm.
very angry about that for a number of years. So Oprah's like, "Which stage are you in?" She's like, "Anger, anger, anger."
Oh my God, that's so funny. And so, but for you to, how was that for you? I mean, as the caregiver and having grown up with all of this work, were you able to, I mean, it's your mother,
Yeah,
sometimes,
well, it's tough. Uh, I grew up seeing the whole circle. It's not, being famous is fun and it also is just terrible. It's a two-sided coin
sure.
and people tend to glorify the nice part and minimize the bad part, but there was a lot of bad part just, people constantly, I have whole boxes of like newspapers, magazines just attacking my mother over every phase of her life,
Mm.
Talking to dying patients, that's horrible. Talking to dying children, you're a monster. Working with AIDS patients, like what's wrong with you? Like, you shouldn't work with AIDS patients. Talking about NDEs in her press. Oh, she's gone crazy, Just every chapter of her life was completely controversial, and she just totally got blasted for it.
Yeah, but I think when you are a front runner, when you are a rule breaker, somebody that's coming out with a new idea,
Mhm.
you're always going to have that side of it
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
people, like you said, you're now moving into all these other countries that are ready for this
Mhm.
vision of
Mhm.
of death and dying where they weren't before. So,
Mhm.
it's no surprise that she was being attacked as well as being honored and exonerated for the great, beautiful work she was bringing forward. There were
Right.
always going to be that other side that's like, you are completely out of your mind.
It's just so funny because, like, you could look at two articles the same week and go, is this the same person? Like,
Yeah, right,
it's unbelievable.
right.
So, anyway, I grew up with it, so I could deal with both sides. But then, as a son, you don't like seeing part of it. So,
Yeah, for
or,
sure.
or you don't like seeing people who are purposely misrepresenting the work just because that gets an audience. So,
Right, 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 right. Well, it's interesting. As you know, this podcast for me was inspired by my relationship with Dr. Gladys McGarey, who
Mhm.
was a co-founder with your mom on the American Holistic Medical Association
Right.
back in the 70s. And, so their work crossed paths a bunch.
Mhm.
And Gladys and I had done an Instagram Live for 3.5 years, from her age of 101 to 103 and a half.
Yeah,
And
it was pretty amazing.
it was pretty cool because I really had no idea how much energy she had to actually do an Instagram Live. And I just thought, okay, I'll just do this as long as she's willing to, keep doing this. Well, she never wanted to stop. And one of the things she loved the most about it was the international impact that on a given Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern, we had people from all over the world that were coming on live. And
Oh,
when
yeah.
you think about the era of her growing up and communication, I mean, it was mind-blowing to her.
Oh,
But
yeah, I can imagine.
the thing that was so beautiful for me to see at the end of her life was she really chose, she just said to her daughter-in-law, I don't really think I have much energy left to start a new project. And
Hmm.
then she thought, no, I know the next project, death.
Hmm.
And from that moment, it was 1 week of her consciously dying and she died. And it was really cool because when she was in the middle of that week, I really just wanted to talk to her to let her know just how grateful I was for my relationship with her and all of it. And I know I've told this story on this podcast before, but it's just such a great story. And so her son finally said, okay, well, it really takes a lot out of her to talk. And I said, I don't need her to talk. Just hold the phone next to her ear so I can tell her, that
Hmm.
I love her. And so she gets on the phone, and I don't think she's going to start talking, but she does. And so we're basically talking over each other, just saying how much we loved each other and, all the things. And then I asked her if, I said, are you in between the worlds? And she
Hmm.
said yes. So she was kind of slipping in and out of, where she was headed. And
Right.
when she grew up in India, she had an ayah that was sort of like a, modern day nanny that cared for the children while her two parents were administering medicinal services. And so I said, "Is your ayah there?" And she said yes. And they're singing Christmas hymns in Hindustani. And all of a sudden, in a very strong voice, she belted out a song in Hindustani to
Wow.
me. And I was just like, I mean, I had tears streaming down my face. And I was like, oh my God, she's singing to me from the other side. Like, this is so wild. And then the song ended. And her more feeble voice came back. And then I mean, what do you say? I was like, I love you and
Wow.
I'll see you again, you know?
Hmm.
And then she just died peacefully 2 days later. Um,
Love it. Yeah, those people who are so evolved, like it's crazy.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we could all, if we could all do that, that would be just absolutely amazing. Well, so are
Exactly.
there any, with all the stories that you have about your mother, is there any, I don't know, some funny one, some kind of crazy story that you don't share that often?
Well, yeah, it's endless, but I'll tell you one in a similar vein. So, my mom moved out here after her house was burnt down, and I think about 6 months later, she had a major stroke, so she
Mm.
was paralyzed. And so, as I mentioned, she was angry. She was angry for years and years and years. After about three,
Oh,
4 years, she kind of settled into it. She made some peace with it because we began traveling and doing some fun things. So we went to visit her sisters. We went to a sister's funeral after that. I took her to Los Angeles, and I think she went to Chicago once. She went to Texas once. We went to a party in Alabama. I think she got an award in New York. Anyway, for 9 years, I listened to her say, Kenneth, don't make plans next week. I'm going to die on Monday, or whatever it was. And I'm like, yeah, okay, mom. And, you know, it didn't happen. And so one day after 9 years, she said, I don't want to die. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And she
right,
totally changed the subject, like, up, beep. It was gone. And she just went, oh, can you get me some tea or some food or whatever? And she would not come back to it, no matter how much I tried. I tried the next day and the next day. I didn't know what you're talking about. But
wow,
6 weeks later, she died. And it really like haunted me. Like, why did she say that right before she died? That's really like bugged me. Like, what did she mean after 9 years of saying she wanted to die? She said, I don't want to die. Like, in what way do you not want to die?
right,
Like physically, spiritually, like you. Anyway, after about 2 years of processing this, I thought, oh, it's my mother's lesson. Like when you learn all your lessons, you're allowed to graduate and make your transition, right? And so finally, after 9 years, she learned her last lesson of having self-love, enjoying the fact that she had grandkids, that I was just 60 seconds around the corner because we had moved her to a nursing home, that she had a great Nicaraguan doctor at the nursing home that totally got her. And when she let go of that last anger, poof, she was allowed to graduate after nine
huh,
years. But
wow.
it's like, finally, the master has learned her last lesson.
But wait, so do you think she didn't want to die because she finally came into this level of self-love and was like, "Oh, this is actually not so bad."
Yeah, she had one more lesson to learn on this earth, which was,
Hmm.
letting go of the anger, letting people take
Mm,
care of you instead of you always being the one giving the lessons,
right.
giving the love, taking care of others. You need to learn to take in the love as well as give it.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
And so, poof.
and so, when you referred to her as like, her spooks, like she was,
Mhm.
so uh have you had any signs of your mother after she passed?
Oh yeah. So I'm always about following my passions, I guess. So whenever I like something, I kind of maybe go too far. So like traveling, I'm a travel maniac. Rescuing cats, I had 8 cats at one point.
Wow.
Uh, I loved the drums when I was a kid, so I had this gigantic set, and I've actually played in 3 bands. And so,
Cool.
I kind of just go for it and like just exploring like what I could do with these passions. So, so now I'm lost here with my pain meds. What's the question? So, I'm still on a
Um,
few pain meds from that back surgery last month.
oh,
So,
that's such a bummer.
yeah, so I'm almost out of it, but not quite. So I still go on little, you know, oxy GABA little trails here.
Well, that's
So,
okay because my cold just did the same thing to me, and then now I don't even remember what the question was that I asked you. Oh, we're both really good.
yes,
Um,
exactly. So,
Good Lord. Well, I'm gonna switch directions a little bit and just
okay.
we'll probably come back to it and
Oh,
go, oh,
yes, certainly. Yeah.
that's what it was. Um, so having grown up in this, oh, I know what it was. Spooks. Did she
Boots.
ever?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So maybe a few months after my mom died, I had this drum set and I was living alone. And, my mom had this wicked sense of humor. It was definitely on the wicked side sometimes. So it would always be when I was bending over to tie my shoe at the front door, it'd be like a single hit on the snare drum. And it just
Wow.
scared the death out of me. I would like just totally jump and fall down. I'm like, Mom, not while I'm bending over. Like I'm gonna like,
Wow.
break my neck here. And I think it happened 4 times. Just a
Huh.
single snap on the snare drum. And it just each time was just freaking me out. So yeah,
Hello,
4 times
Mom.
that. And then another time I was sitting in my closet, one of my cats had kittens, and I heard my mother's voice on a Sunday night about 11:30 p.m. go, hello, with her Swiss accent.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I just totally projected mom's voice. That was like crazy. That's the strongest I've ever heard it. And I look up, and my girlfriend at the time was sitting next to me on the floor playing with the kittens. She goes, who's in our house? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, that woman just said hello. Is that the housekeeper? I go, no. She goes, no, there's a woman in the house. I'm like, no, there's no one in the house at 11:30 on a Sunday night. She goes, well,
Wow.
there's no one in the house. I go, yeah, well, it's mom. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so those are the 5 times I got very crystal clear, you know, little
Hits.
connections from mom
Yeah.
upstairs.
It's interesting. Just last week, I don't remember where I was, but my dad, he smoked a very particular type of pipe tobacco.
Hmm.
And one time after he passed, I was driving my car and I was in the back roads of Connecticut, windows were rolled up, and all of a sudden, my car just smelled like pipe tobacco. And I was like, "Oh, well, hello, Dad," And
Exactly.
at the time, my mother was on her way out, and so I just had a little conversation with him about, "Could you please go get Mom? She's afraid, and we need her to go." But
Exactly.
just last week, I was walking somewhere and I smelled the pipe tobacco again. So I'm like, "Oh, hey, Dad, nice that you're here."
That's funny.
You
I
know.
hear a lot of people tell me when they think about Elizabeth, sometimes they can smell her smoke
Mm-hmm.
and they get those messages too.
Yeah, interesting. So growing up the way that you did and traveling around and maybe this is not an easy thing to answer because it's just who you are, but how
Mhm.
do you think growing up with the knowledge, like with her witnessing all that she went through, witnessing and experiencing the wisdom that she was sharing with the world and the books she was writing and the lectures she was giving. How has that, in what way, maybe, in what way has that shifted your perspective on life?
Um, well, keep in mind, both my parents were doctors and both worked with death. So my
Oh, I
father
did
was,
not know that your dad did as well.
oh yeah, so he was a neuropathologist. So he
Oh,
used to bring home human brains and leave them in the kitchen.
oh, you did,
So,
yes.
we have the human brains. My mom's bringing home dying patients. My dad is asking me to drive to the hospital, to the morgue to pick up something for him, like a jar of something. And my mom is, taking me to meet dying people. And it was just like, pardon
Wow,
the pun,
that's a
but it was
lot.
overkill.
Yeah.
Overkill on death. So, yeah, so I thought, wow, life is short and precarious. I have to live the most fun life possible because for some people it's very, very short and not so pleasant, maybe. So I thought, my dad had his National Geographic magazine, so I thought I was gonna go be a photographer and see the world before I left it. So my goal was to photograph 101 countries, and I've shot 112 so far.
Wow.
So so that's that thing that my passions, when I'm passionate about something, I was like, okay, travel, I'm going to go to Iraq and go on vacation. I'm going to go to Damascus. I'm going to go to Central Africa and do crazy stuff.
And so what is it about? I mean, there are plenty of people that wouldn't be how their art, if you will, the art of a well-lived life, that wouldn't be how they would do it. So
Mhm.
what is it about travel that gives you like that juice that gets you excited?
Um, to begin with, I was terribly shy, terribly quiet, right, when I was young. So I thought, this is great. I can just hide behind the camera. I don't have to
Mm,
talk to people. I could just be in my own little zone. I could travel, talk to people, take pictures, give them to my agencies. They can sell them. And I'm in my own little world. I feel safe, and all's good. And then, as I was traveling to more and more interesting places, I was really getting frustrated because I couldn't photograph people on the street because I was too shy to approach them. And so, like mom teaches, choose love over fear because at the end of your life, it's ridiculous, all these little fears you have. And I thought, well, this is ridiculous.
mm,
Like, why can't I just approach these people? Like, just, what are they gonna say? No, go
right,
away. Like,
right.
So anyway, I started coming out of my shell, and the camera was this great tool to come out of my shell because I didn't have to do it, or, some days I feel more shy than other days. But through the camera, started coming out of my shell, started getting these great people shots. Um, and wow, it really led to some interesting situations. And more I embraced it. And then I really became like a people photographer almost, which is
Mm,
totally surprising. And the camera was this vehicle to stop and meet people on the street that you could never normally talk to. I mean,
right.
or to go in situations or to hang from a helicopter or meet tribal people, meet movie stars, whatever it is. The camera was this vehicle that made life bigger than life.
Hmm.
And so I was like, wow, this is really like fun. Like the more I push it, the more interesting it gets. And so I just, love the camera and photography for bringing me out of my shell and making life 10 times bigger than it would have maybe if I had never taken it up.
That's so amazing. And
Yeah.
so since you're photographing people, have you ever photographed the dying population?
I have not. My photography tends to center on life,
Mm,
whatever that is, even though death is a part of life, as we know.
right.
I just thought what my parents taught me, and if you could see behind me, there's these photographs on the wall.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
And over
Oh
here,
wow,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you see, there's a theme. It's just massive amount of color and
Mm-hmm.
graphic character to the images. And I think that's what my parent taught me that. life is super colorful and it's graphically interesting. It's full of shadows and light, and that's how I chose to see life. It's just big, bold, exciting. Like, yeah, there's time for death at the end, but I just think life is bright and fluffy and wow, it's like so interesting. So that's why I photograph I think in like a surreal kind of way. A lot of
Okay.
my photographs are have some surreal elements to it because I think life is kind of surreal, like
Hmm.
sitting around this ball in the middle of space. Like,
Yeah.
if you go 8 miles high, you can't breathe. If you go 2 miles down, it's too hot. I mean, what are the odds that,
Right.
just on this little hair thin place on
Trust.
this ball of rock that we
Yeah.
can exist? I mean, chances are a trillion to one. So I just think being alive is just so surreal.
Well, I love the contrast, you know. I mean, when you talk about it the way you just did, and your dad bringing home brains, and your mother bringing in dying people, and so it it sort of not drove you to, but had you experience life in a different way. And I
Yeah.
love that you have found that through the, backside of a camera. That's
And I
so
think
cool.
like mom teaches, like, we'll all face death, but not all of us live or live fully, right? So
Exactly.
that's what I want to live the most crazy, amazing life that I could do 100 times and never be bored, right? So I just want to live super fully and
Well, and
not
that's what I'm
miss
trying to,
chances.
yes, that's what I
Mhm,
want to talk to people about is like, what is that for you?
mhm,
Because, we all have, like Gladys wrote her last book was The Art of a Well, not the art, sorry, is The Well-Lived Life. And
mhm.
so while she had this particular, that was her, mm, what she wanted to get out into the world was how
Right.
she saw
Full
what
flavor.
that well-lived
Right.
life is,
Hmm.
but it's something different for all of us. And while we can take the proponents of what she had to offer, it shows up in such a different way for everybody. So I love that you've taken that into the photography. And so when you travel for the foundation, are you also doing a lot of photography while you're there, or is it just you go, you do the foundation stuff, and then you go travel for photography elsewhere?
I find my photography life and my photographic life on one side kind of has this interesting symbiotic relationship with my mom's life and with the foundation because through traveling, I've learned to live fully. I've learned to be able to be expressive, come out of my shell. And running a foundation, I need to have that because I need to give presentations all around the world, right? So I couldn't have done that
Yeah.
without photography. And then further, the photography, I've met people through my photography who became my friends, and they became my best friends, who became my family, and then enriched my soul. And my soul is so enriched that I feel like I'm ready to pay back a life that's been very generous to me. Like I feel
Mm.
like, wow, I just took so much from photography. Like it's all about my joy, my experience. And now I'm giving back through the foundation. So it's not only one or the other. Everything is very symbiotic. So I go on a trip for the foundation, but I'll take a day or two or three for my photography. Or I'll do a photographic trip like I went to Iraq for a vacation. But while I was there, I contacted my colleagues. I said, do we have any connections in Iraq? They told me about the biggest cancer hospital. I called them, I arranged to get a tour. And then the doctor there said, hey, we're really in need of training, of connections, of awareness. And so I connected him with a number of palliative care groups around the world. I sent him classes, and I felt like I was not just taking, but giving back. And I feel whenever I do a photography trip or a foundation trip, I'm giving and taking, and I try to
Yeah,
do that, maybe not in equal measures, but it's never just one or the other.
right.
It's always like hand in hand.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, that is really a beautiful way that you have woven that together.
Yeah.
And
Try to live those
just the
lessons
way
for
that,
mom.
huh?
Try to live those lessons from mom.
Well, and just
They
the way
work.
you're expressing it of, living this wild, I don't think you said audacious, but seems like that,
Narcissistic, selfish, like whatever.
this wild, fun life that just brings you so much joy and expansiveness. I
Mhm.
mean, oh, that's so good. Well,
Yeah.
so what going forward with the foundation, like what's the next level? Is it just still what you said earlier of going into countries where you can get the biggest, impact in the shortest amount of time, or like what's really exciting you about the next thing with the foundation and your mother's work?
Mhm. How many hours do we have? Um, well, I think I myself have like taken it as far as I can take it. So I think I really need to bring in more board members who kind of know what they're doing and can expand mom's vision, my vision into ways I haven't thought of, into areas we haven't thought of.
Hmm,
So at Endwell, for example, I was having some meetings with people about being on the board.
okay.
And, they know a lot I don't know after 20 years. So, I am fully happy to admit that. So, bring in bigger brains than I have. So, who have different visions or can tie visions together in a way I can't do it. So, next year's mom's 100th birthday.
Oh,
So we're going to be celebrating it in a number of different ways, but I want to start bringing in people who have, another vision of my mother's vision, things I haven't explored or just don't have, the manpower to lift right now, but bring
right.
in other people who do, who have connections I don't have, bring in funding, etc. So I think it's a great time with the 20th anniversary of the foundation this year, mom's 100th birthday next year, working on mom's film, going to release some books that have never been out as ebooks, et
Oh,
cetera, et
wow.
cetera.
And
So,
is it a documentary about her life?
no, it's going to be, a dramatized version, like a TV series for Netflix, or
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think probably a TV series over a movie because we've been working on it for a long time. And the problem is you cannot tell her story in 2 hours. You can't even tell a part of her story
Right.
in 2 hours. So when we were with HBO, they said there's at least 5 movies here, and none of us can agree which movie we want to tell because all of them are fantastic. So I think now that we're in the era of, miniseries, I think we have a
Right.
good chance of selling the project.
Wow. That's great. And so what are the celebrations for her 100th do tell?
Well, some are hush hush, but
Okay.
like the project with St. Luke's, we haven't officially announced it, so that's going to be in January. In April, we're doing an announcement with cemeteries. We're going to be licensing mom's name to cemeteries to create, cemeteries that have been trained by the foundation in her methods so that they are not so focused on sales, but more on family support.
Mm.
Right? Everything is
Yeah.
kind of a business model towards sales, sales, sales. And we've tried this in Central America where a cemetery totally stopped selling. All they do is grief support for families. They built a butterfly center so that mothers who lost babies
Mm.
or has stillbirths can have a baby naming ceremony. They can have a cremation, which they couldn't afford because they're
Wow.
underprivileged families. And
Mm-hmm.
so the cemetery pays for everything.
Wow.
And because of that, they're now known as the cemetery that cares, and they have more business than they've ever had when they
Yeah,
were selling.
of course.
And they're like, it's totally the Kubler-Ross model. Just do things, with the idea of unconditional love and, supporting culture and our society, and, you'll receive back. And so
Wow.
we're going to be working on that next year. We're working with a number of groups like ADEC. It's going to do something for Mom's birthday. We have a couple conferences coming up in Argentina, Guatemala. Going to be meeting with Mom's publishers in Japan to propose a whole new book on Mom's work that hasn't
Wow.
been even addressed in past.
Huh.
And what else are we doing? Yeah, we're contacting the Swiss embassy, et cetera, et cetera. So a number of different things.
Wow. And so if people aren't familiar completely with your mother's work, is the best place to go to the website, the foundation?
I'm not sure if there's one place. I mean, she authored 24 books, over 100 chapters. She gave numerous lectures. So,
Right, there's a ton on YouTube.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I talk to experts like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I know it's just like endless.
Yeah,
Um,
wow.
the thing I find ironic is like some of the current catchphrases in the industry, like holding space, anticipatory grief, cultural humility, all these things, patient-centered care. They think it's like the new thing. And it's like,
Yeah,
these are all Kubler-Ross
right,
back in the 70s, but they think, oh, Kubler-Ross's work is old. We don't teach it anymore.
right.
We're all about these new catchphrases and buzzwords. I'm like, no, that's Kubler-Ross,
That
so
is so funny.
one of my things is I gotta make people realize like this stuff has been around for half a century now.
Right.
Anticipatory grief was part of the five stages.
Mm,
Nobody has ever mentioned that in public. It's fine if you don't like it, but I don't think they really understand what they're criticizing.
right, right,
There wasn't actually five stages. So,
right,
so I just find, it's ironic that some people think she's past when she's totally current more than ever.
right. Yeah, well, amazing. So, um, oh, I really appreciate you coming on with me today on a
Oh, my pleasure.
Sunday in the middle of your many travels that
Oh,
you are
Sunday's my
doing.
best day. I try to have some home time and catch
Well,
up.
I really, really appreciate it. So, one final sort of question. If you, I mean, you've kind of already answered it, but, given your life, given all that you have done and seen and continue to do your mother's work,
Mhm.
if I don't even know how to ask you this question actually, because it's really coming down to how does somebody else live a well-lived life? I mean, I know that we can't, because it's so different for everybody else. But like, for one thing, I know there's, and I think I saw it in your mother's writing as well about, people not wanting to die with regret.
Right.
And so, that was a big driving force
Mhm.
to for people to like, woof, I don't want to die with regret. And so they live a life that allows them to get rid of to move through that and live a
Mhm.
more I'm sorry, I'm feeling tongue-tied right now, but
No, no, I understand what you're going through.
do you
I,
you kind of get the gist of what I'm
right.
asking you?
Well,
I know
well,
it's a
it's
hard
funny.
question.
No, no, it's funny because just recently in July, I gave a speech on this in Guatemala. So, and it's funny, my different international chapters will invite me down, and then I know they're just notorious for this. They won't tell me what I'm talking about. And then evening before, they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're giving a talk on life lessons tomorrow." I'm like, I haven't read that book in 30 years. Like,
Wow.
oh, well, you're an expert on everything. I'm like, no, really, I'm not. Like, so it just makes me crazy. So I get down there and Wendy, who runs EKR Guatemala, is like, oh, well, you're going to be talking to 300 people tomorrow at a school, talking about how to live like, what do you call it? Like Ken Ross, like, like living a full, crazy, fun life.
Right.
Like, and I go, oh, okay, well, thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing my mother would say is, when you look at her speaking, I'm not even sure if I've ever heard, I guess she must have, but she never talked about the word grief, which is surprising. She talked about grief as unfinished business
Huh.
because she realized, I think, before just about anybody, that grief is just not death, it's a divorce. It's losing your goldfish when you were a kid. It's
Right.
breaking up with your high school sweetheart, whatever it is. it's the accumulation of everything in your life. So it's not just like grief about life and death and you lost your parents. It's unfinished business, according to my mom, right? So so she would say, we're afraid to die because we're been afraid to live. So how am I going to fix that? Fix, I use that term loosely. So she goes, I'm going to give a 5-day workshop on how to take care of your unfinished business. So those are called life, death, and transition workshops. So she got 100 people to, just externalize
Hmm.
their deepest angers, their repressed emotions, whether they had been molested as a child, whether something in their past was keeping them from living fully.
Mm-hmm.
So she would say, you've got to externalize. You got to do the work. It doesn't matter if you're the best, grief worker on the planet, you've got unfinished business. We all have
Right.
unfinished business. My mother
Right.
had it. As we saw at the end of her life,
Yeah.
6 weeks before she died, she had unfinished business so that she hadn't dealt with. So I would say number one, deal with your unfinished business. And it's not easy to tap into that. I mean, a lot of times it's repressed. We didn't even know it's there, but
Right.
you need to find a way to tap into it, whether you know about it or not.
Right.
And you've got to keep doing the work. It's just like, it's not like one and done. Like, you got to keep working at it. And I got to
Peeling
keep
back
pushing
the
myself.
layers.
Yeah, because, I sometimes fall back to my patterns or I'm too lazy or shy to talk to someone on the street. I'm like, Ken, come on. Like, you're in this unusual country. Like, make the effort. Like,
Right.
you never know what's going to happen. So you got to push yourself. And, you get the rewards. It's not always immediately, but the rewards come. And I think it's a great way to live
I
is
love
living
it.
your life love-based, not fear-based.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much. That
My
was,
pleasure.
yeah, I really appreciate this conversation and what an amazing human you are for continuing her legacy, but also being just a way shower of how to live that life and how to keep doing the work and put yourself out there and, doing all the things that you're doing is really beautiful. And
Oh,
we
thank you
need
so
the
much.
people like you to keep showing other people how to do it. And what a beautiful space to be showing other people in in the world that you find yourself, you know?
Well,
It's great.
I find it funny because people always say to me, Ken, you can't keep traveling. You've got to settle down. I'm like, no, no,
Why?
no. We got it backwards. You have to live like me. I don't
Yeah.
have to live like you.
Yeah.
So,
No, no, I'm good. Thanks so much. You have a good life over there. Yeah.
yeah,
Ah,
exactly. So,
well, thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Rest,
thank you.
relax. I
Yeah,
hope your back heals beautifully, perfectly.
thank you. I'm excited to have my first speech in Cuba next week. So I'm
Ooh,
looking forward to that.
that is very cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I love that.
Hey,
And
thank you for your time
hopefully,
and for giving me this opportunity.
absolutely. And hopefully we will meet in person someday. That
I'd
would
like
be
that.
great. Okay,
Okay.
thanks again.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Uh, What an amazing conversation that was with Kenn Ross, the son of Elizabeth Kübler-Ross, and what a beautiful human being he is, and just the way that he is living his life, the art of a well-lived life through his photography and travel. And I just loved what he had to say about giving back. And like he'll go on these trips for the foundation for his mother, and then just, also have the time to do this photography work, which has just opened his world up in such a big, beautiful way. Um, so anyway, I hope you enjoy it. It was really lovely. And as Ken said, you can find his mother's work all over the place. So many books, many, many lectures on YouTube. You could find her. Um, he is the head of the Her Foundation that he created, which is the EKR Foundation. You can go on that website. And there you have it. So if you love this episode, please share it with others. and let's spread the work of Elizabeth Kübler-Ross, which is still incredibly relevant and important today. All right. See you soon. Bye.